The plastic grocery bags cut into my fingers as I stepped out of the store into the bright afternoon sun. I was thinking about what to make for dinner, something Alexander would approve of, when a hand grabbed my arm. "Mrs. Sterling, please. I need to talk to you." I turned and found myself staring into Robert Patterson's weathered face. My husband's former driver looked older than I remembered, his hair grayer, his green jacket hanging loose on his frame. For a year now, I'd been sending him money orders, $200 every 2 weeks, always careful to use cash so Alexander wouldn't see the transactions. It was the least I could do after watching my husband fire him without a single day of severance after 12 years of loyal service. "Robert." I glanced around nervously. "You shouldn't be here. If Alexander sees you." I know. His grip on my arm tightened. "But I have to tell you something. Tomorrow morning don't get in your car. Take the bus instead. The number 12 that stops on 5th Avenue. I stared at him. "What?" "Robert, I don't understand. Please, Mrs. Sterling." "Naomi." His eyes were desperate, almost wild. "Don't get in that car tomorrow. Take the bus. It's life or death. You'll understand when you see who's on it." My heart started pounding. "What are you talking about? Is something wrong with my car?" "Just trust me. Take the bus. The 12 that leaves at 8:15. He released my arm and stepped back. "I'm repaying the kindness you showed me. That's all I can say." Before I could ask anything else, he turned and walked quickly away, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. I stood there, frozen, watching him go. That night I couldn't eat. Dinner with Alexander was the same as always. Silent. Cold. He sat at one end of our massive dining table, scrolling through his phone, while I sat at the other end, picking at the salmon our cook had prepared. The chandelier above us cost more than most people earned in a year. Everything in our penthouse apartment screamed wealth, success, power. Everything except the marriage itself. "You're quiet tonight," Alexander said without looking up from his phone. At 52 he was still handsome in that sharp, calculating way that made people nervous. His dark suit probably cost $5,000. His watch cost more than a car. "Just tired," I said. He set down his phone. "I need you at the Henderson benefit next week. Wear the blue Valentino. The one with the high neck." "Not a request. Never a request." "Of course," I said. He nodded and went back to his phone. The conversation was over. I went to bed early, claiming a headache. Alexander didn't come to our bedroom until after midnight. I pretended to be asleep. We'd stopped sharing a bed months ago in any real sense. He slept on his side. I slept on mine. Sometimes weeks passed without us touching at all. I'd married Alexander Sterling 15 years ago when I was 24 and he was 37. I'd been working as a junior marketing coordinator at his company, Sterling Enterprises. He'd been recently divorced, powerful, magnetic. He'd pursued me with the same ruthless efficiency he applied to business deals. Within 6 months we were married. For a while I'd been happy. Or I told myself I was happy. Alexander gave me everything money could buy. A penthouse apartment. Designer clothes. Jewelry. Vacations to private islands. I'd quit my job to focus on being his wife, hosting his parties, attending his events, looking perfect on his arm. But somewhere along the way I'd realized I was just another acquisition. Another asset. Something he owned. The next morning I woke up thinking about Robert's warning. Don't get in the car. Take the bus. It was ridiculous. Paranoid. Robert had probably been drinking. Or maybe the stress of losing his job had affected him more than I thought. But as I got dressed, I couldn't shake his desperate expression. His eyes. The way he'd said life or death. Alexander had already left for the office by the time I finished my coffee. Our driver, Miguel, would be waiting downstairs with the car. Alexander insisted I use the driver for everything. He said it was safer. More appropriate for someone of my position. But really it was about control. I looked at my phone. 7:50. If I was going to take the bus, I needed to leave now. This is crazy, I thought. Robert was probably confused. Maybe he'd mixed me up with someone else. But my hands were already grabbing my purse. My feet were already moving toward the door. Something in my gut told me to listen. I texted Miguel, taking a walk this morning. Won't need the car until this afternoon. Then I walked out of our building, turned left instead of right, and headed toward 5th Avenue. The number 12 bus stop was 2 blocks away. I'd lived in this city my entire life but couldn't remember the last time I'd taken public transportation. 5 years? 10? Alexander would be horrified if he knew. A small group of people waited at the stop. A young mother with a toddler. An elderly man reading a newspaper. A teenager with headphones. Normal people living normal lives. The bus arrived at 8:13. I hesitated, my heart pounding. This was insane. I should go home. Call Miguel. Forget about Robert's crazy warning. But I got on the bus. I paid my fare and found a seat near the middle. The bus smelled like coffee and cleaning products. The seats were blue vinyl, cracked in places. Everything was so ordinary, so far from my usual world. We pulled away from the stop. I watched the city roll by through the window, wondering what I was doing, what I was looking for. And then at the third stop she got on. I recognized her immediately. Carla Bennett. Alexander's executive assistant. She'd worked for him for 3 years, always efficient, always professional. I'd seen her dozens of times at company events, usually hovering near Alexander with a tablet, managing his schedule. But the woman who got on the bus looked nothing like the polished professional I knew. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red and swollen. She wore jeans and a faded blue sweater instead of her usual sharp business attire. She looked broken. And she was pregnant. Very pregnant. I felt the blood drain from my face. Carla didn't notice me at first. She found a seat near the front and stared out the window, one hand resting on her rounded belly. My mind was racing. Carla was pregnant. Why had Robert wanted me to see this? What did it have to do with my car? Unless... No. The thought formed slowly, horribly. I didn't want to think it. But once it was there, I couldn't make it go away. I stood up, my legs shaking. I walked down the aisle toward Carla. She looked up as I approached, and her face went white. Mrs. Sterling. She started to stand. I didn't know you. I didn't expect. Sit down, I said quietly. Please. She sat. I took the seat next to her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The bus rumbled through the city. Other passengers got on and off. No one paid attention to the two women sitting together, one in designer clothes, one in discount store jeans. How far along are you? I asked finally. Carla's hand moved protectively to her stomach. 6 months. And the father? She closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. Mrs. Sterling, I'm so sorry. I never meant. He said you two were practically divorced. He said it didn't matter. The bus lurched to a stop. Someone got off. Someone else got on. The world kept moving even as mine fell apart. My husband, I said. It wasn't a question. Carla nodded, still crying. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't help. I know you probably hate me. I hate myself. I should have been angry, furious. But instead I felt strangely numb. Cold. Why are you on the bus? I asked. Why aren't you at work? He fired me, Carla said. 2 weeks ago. When I told him about the baby. He said I was trying to trap him. He said if I told anyone he'd destroy me. He'd make sure I never worked anywhere in this city again. He gave me $5,000 and told me to disappear. The numbness was wearing off now. Something else was taking its place. Something that felt like ice spreading through my veins. Where are you going now? I asked. Clinic, she said. The free one on Amsterdam Avenue. I can't afford regular prenatal care. I pulled out my phone. Opened my banking app. Alexander monitored our joint accounts, but I had my own account from before we were married. I'd been adding small amounts to it over the years, money from birthday gifts from my mother's estate. It wasn't much. Maybe $30,000. But it was mine. I transferred $5,000 to Carla's account. She gave me her account information with trembling hands, confused. That's for medical care, I said. Real care. Not a free clinic. Mrs. Sterling, I can't. Did my husband ask you to do something tomorrow? I interrupted. Something with the car? Carla's face changed. How did you know? Tell me. She took a shaky breath. He gave me money. $10,000. He said all I had to do was tamper with the brake line on your car. Make it look like an accident. He said you'd never know. You'd just have a small crash. Maybe get hurt a little. Enough that you'd need him. Depend on him. He said you'd been too independent lately. He wanted you scared. The bus was slowing down for another stop. I felt like I couldn't breathe. When? I asked. Tonight. He gave me the code for the parking garage. He said Miguel always leaves the car in the same spot. He said to cut the brake line just enough that it would fail after a few miles. He said. She was crying harder now. He said if I didn't do it, he'd make sure everyone knew about the baby. He'd make sure I was blacklisted everywhere. He'd tell people I stole from the company. He'd ruin me. The bus stopped. The doors opened. I stood up. Don't do it, I said. But he'll. Let me worry about Alexander. I looked at her, this woman carrying my husband's child, this woman he'd used and threatened. I'm going to need your help. And you're going to need mine. Are you willing? Carla stared at me. Then slowly she nodded. I'm staying at the extended stay on West 48th, she said. Room 302. I'll contact you soon, I said. Don't talk to Alexander. Don't answer if he calls. Just wait. I got off at the next stop and stood on the sidewalk as the bus pulled away. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. For 15 years I'd been Mrs. Alexander Sterling. The perfect wife. The elegant hostess. The woman who smiled and stayed quiet and never made waves. That woman was gone. I pulled out my phone and called Robert. Thank you, I said when he answered. You just saved my life. I didn't go home. Not right away. Instead, I walked 20 blocks through the bright morning sun, my mind churning. People passed me on the sidewalk, hurrying to work, to appointments, to lives that made sense. I envied them. My husband had tried to have me killed. No, not killed. Hurt. Scared. He wanted me dependent. Broken. So I'd stop being whatever he thought I'd become. Too independent. What did that even mean? I found myself at Central Park and sat on a green bench near the entrance. Joggers ran past. A man threw a tennis ball for his golden retriever. Everything was so normal. So beautiful. The sky was clear blue. The trees were full of spring leaves. And I just learned my husband was planning to have someone cut my brake lines. My phone buzzed. Alexander. Where are you? He asked when I answered. No greeting. No warmth. Out for a walk, I said. I needed some air. Miguel said you didn't take the car. I felt like walking. Is that a problem? Pause. You sound strange. I have a headache, I said. I might go to the spa. Get a massage. Fine. I need you home by 6. We have the Rothman dinner tonight. He hung up without saying goodbye. He never said goodbye. I sat there for another hour thinking. Planning. Then I took a taxi home. Our penthouse was empty. The housekeeper had already been and gone. Everything was perfect. Clean. Organized. Like a museum. Like nobody actually lived here. I went to Alexander's study. He kept it locked, but I knew where he hid the key. Behind a loose panel in the hallway closet. I discovered it years ago by accident. I'd never used it. Never had a reason to. Until now. The study was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood desk. Leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with books Alexander had never read. He wasn't a reader. These were just props. Everything about Alexander was props. Appearances. His computer sat on the desk. I knew his password. It was the same password he used for everything. Sterling 2009. The year he'd founded his company. I logged in and started searching. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Evidence of the affair with Carla, maybe. But I found so much more. Files. Hundreds of files. Organized in folders with innocuous names like personnel and finances and correspondence. I opened personnel first. What I found made me sick. Robert Patterson. Fired. Reason listed, suspected theft. No evidence provided. No investigation. Just fired. With a note. Made sure he won't find work anywhere reputable. Called in favors. Sophie Chin. Accountant. Fired. Reason. Insubordination. Note. Asked too many questions about the offshore accounts. Blacklisted. James Morrison. Corporate lawyer. Fired. Reason. Poor performance. Note. Threatened to report ethics violations. Made sure State Bar got anonymous complaint about him. Problem solved. Patricia Williams. Housekeeper. Fired. Reason. Theft. Note. Caught her cleaning when I had Melissa over. Couldn't risk her talking. Police report filed. She won't find work again. On and on. Dozens of people. All fired. All destroyed. All for knowing too much, seeing too much, questioning too much. And then there were the affairs. Melissa. Stephanie. Jennifer. Rachel. Women from his company, women he'd met at conferences, women from his gym. Photos. Text messages. Hotel receipts. Years and years of affairs. I've been so stupid. So blind. Or maybe I'd known and just hadn't wanted to see. I kept digging. I found the offshore accounts Sophie had questioned. Millions of dollars moved around, hidden, untaxed. I found bribes paid to city officials. I found evidence of stock manipulation, insider trading, fraud. Alexander wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a criminal. And I had access to all of it. I heard the front door open. My heart stopped. Naomi? Alexander's voice echoed through the apartment. Are you home? I glanced at the clock. 4:30. He never came home this early. Just a second, I called. My hands were shaking as I logged out of the computer. I shoved the key in my pocket and stepped out of the study, pulling the door closed behind me. Alexander stood in the living room, his jacket already off, his tie loosened. He looked at me with narrowed eyes. What were you doing in my study? My mouth went dry. I was looking for stamps. I wanted to mail a letter. Stamps. His voice was flat. You went into my locked study to look for stamps. The door was open, I said. I thought maybe you'd left it unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. We stared at each other. The air between us felt dangerous. Then Alexander smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Never mind. I'm sure I just forgot this morning. I've been distracted. He walked past me into the study. I held my breath, waiting for him to notice something out of place. But he just grabbed a file from his desk and came back out. I have a conference call, he said. Order something for dinner. I'll eat in my office. He disappeared into the smaller office down the hall. I heard the door close. Lock. I stood there, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. He knew. Or he suspected. I had to be more careful. I went to our bedroom and called Robert from my personal cell phone. He answered on the first ring. Can you meet me? I asked. Tonight. Somewhere private. There's a diner on Amsterdam and 79th, he said. Tony's place. I'll be there at 8. I hung up and sat on the bed thinking. I needed help. I needed allies. And I needed to move fast. That evening, I told Alexander the first was having dinner with my friend Bethany. He barely looked up from his computer. Take Miguel, he said. I'll take a taxi. Bethany lives downtown. It's easier. He frowned. I don't like you taking taxis. I'll be fine, Alexander. I'm having dinner with a friend, not traveling through a war zone. Fine. He turned back to his screen. Be home by midnight. I took a taxi to Tony's place. It was a small diner with red vinyl booths and black and white checkered floors. The kind of place Alexander would never be caught dead in. Robert sat in a corner booth, wearing the same green jacket from yesterday. He stood when he saw me. Mrs. Sterling. Please call me Naomi. I slid into the booth across from him. And thank you. For warning me. You saved my life. I owed you, he said simply. You helped me when nobody else would. That money you sent. It kept me going. How did you know? I asked. About the car? Robert sighed. I have a friend who works security in your building. He saw Carla asking questions about the parking garage, getting access codes. It seemed strange. So I followed her for a couple days. I heard her on the phone with Mr. Sterling. Heard enough to know something bad was going to happen. You could have just told me, I said. You didn't have to be so cryptic. If I just told you, would you have believed me? He raised his eyebrows. Or would you have thought I was some bitter ex-employee trying to cause trouble? He was right. I probably wouldn't have believed him. Not without seeing Carla. Hearing her story. I need your help, I said. I found evidence. Files. Documents. Proof that Alexander has been destroying people for years. Proof of financial crimes. I need to know I'm not crazy. I need to know if any of the other people he fired would be willing to talk. Robert leaned forward. Sophie Chin. James Morrison. Patricia Williams. They'd all talk. They've been trying to tell people for years. Nobody listens. Nobody goes up against Alexander Sterling and wins. Maybe nobody has had enough evidence before, I said. You really want to do this? Robert asked. Take him down? Because once you start, there's no going back. He'll come after you with everything he has. I thought about Carla, pregnant and afraid. I thought about Robert, destroyed for being loyal. I thought about all the others. All the lives Alexander had ruined just because he could. I want to do this, I said. Robert smiled for the first time since I'd known him. Then let's take him down. Robert arranged the meeting for Sunday afternoon at his apartment in Queens. I told Alexander the first was going to a charity planning committee. He didn't ask questions. He never asked about my charity work. As long as I showed up at his events wearing the right dress and saying the right things, he didn't care what I did with my time. Miguel drove me to Manhattan, where I said the meeting was being held. Then I took a taxi to Robert's address. The building was old but clean. 6 floors, no elevator. Robert lived on the 4th floor in a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like coffee and old books. It was small but neat. Comfortable. More of a home than our penthouse had ever been. 3 people were already there when I arrived. Naomi Sterling, meet the others, Robert said. A woman in her 30s with long black hair stood first. She wore jeans and a maroon cardigan. Sophie Chin. I was Mr. Sterling's senior accountant until 18 months ago. James Morrison. A tall black man in his 40s shook my hand. His grip was firm. Professional. Corporate attorney. Fired 2 years ago. Patricia Williams. An older woman with gray curls and kind eyes smiled at me. I cleaned your home for 5 years, Mrs. Sterling. Until Mr. Sterling decided I knew too much about his personal life. I remembered Patricia. She'd been kind to me. Always asked how I was doing. Always had a smile. I'm so sorry, I said. I didn't know. Alexander told me you'd stolen jewelry. I figured as much, Patricia said without bitterness. That's his pattern. Fire someone, then destroy their reputation so nobody questions it. We all sat down. Robert had set up folding chairs in his small living room. He'd made coffee. Put out cookies on a plate. It was strangely domestic. Almost normal. Except we were plotting to take down a billionaire. How bad is it? Sophie asked me. What did you find? I pulled out my laptop. Over the past 3 days, I'd been carefully copying files from Alexander's computer. I'd waited until he was asleep, then crept into his study, my heart pounding, terrified he'd wake up and find me. But he never did. Alexander slept like a man without a conscience. Offshore accounts, I said, pulling up the files. 12 of them. Millions of dollars. Money moved around to avoid taxes. Sophie, you were right to ask questions. Sophie's jaw tightened. I knew it. I kept seeing discrepancies. Money going out that didn't match any invoices or contracts. When I asked about it, he told me to mind my business. A week later, I was fired for insubordination. And you? I asked James. I found evidence of bribery, he said. City contracts that Sterling Enterprises won. Always the same pattern. Campaign contributions to certain council members, then suddenly we'd win a contract worth millions. I told Alexander we needed to be careful. That we were crossing lines. He fired me the next day. Then filed a complaint with the state bar saying I'd been drinking on the job and giving bad legal advice. Were you? Drinking? I haven't touched alcohol in 15 years, James said quietly. I'm in recovery. He knew that. He used it against me. By the time I proved the complaint was false, my reputation was already damaged. Nobody wanted to hire me. I looked at Patricia. And you? She smiled sadly. I saw him with another woman. In your home, Mrs. Sterling. In your bedroom. I walked in to change the sheets and there they were. He saw me. I apologized and left immediately. I didn't say anything to anyone. But a week later, he called the police and reported that jewelry was missing. Said it had to be me. Next thing I knew, I was arrested. The charges were eventually dropped, but by then word had spread. Nobody wants to hire a housekeeper who's been accused of theft. Anger was building in my chest. Cold. Hard. This wasn't just about affairs. This was about power. Control. Alexander destroyed people because he could. Because they'd seen something they shouldn't have. Known something he wanted hidden. I have more, I said. I showed them the evidence of stock manipulation. Insider trading. Using confidential information to make millions while others lost their retirement savings. This is federal, James said, leaning forward. Securities fraud. Tax evasion. Bribery of public officials. This isn't just divorce court territory. This is prison time. If we can prove it, Sophie added. And if we can get anyone to listen. Alexander has a lot of friends in high places. Then we find higher places, I said. We go to the FBI, the SEC, the IRS. We bury him in evidence so overwhelming that his friends can't protect him. He'll come after you, Patricia warned. He'll make your life hell. He already is, I said. I just didn't realize it until now. Robert poured more coffee. So what's the plan? I've been thinking about this for days. We gather everything. Every piece of evidence. Every witness. Every person he's destroyed who's willing to talk. We build a case so strong that he can't fight it. But we have to be smart. We can't let him know what we're doing until we're ready to strike. How long do we have? Sophie asked. I don't know, I admitted. He's suspicious. He knows something is wrong. I'm trying to act normal, but I'm not sure how long I can keep it up. Where are you staying? Patricia asked. Are you safe? I'm still in the apartment. I moved into the guest bedroom. Told him I needed space because we'd been arguing. I looked at them. I know it's risky. But if I leave now, he'll know something is wrong. He'll move his money. Hide evidence. I need to stay close. At least for a little while longer. What about Carla? Robert asked. Is she safe? I've been in touch with her. She's staying at an extended stay hotel. I've been sending her money for food and medical care. She's scared, but she's safe for now. She should be part of this, Sophie said. Her testimony could be powerful. I'll talk to her, I said. But we need to make sure she's protected. Alexander already threatened her once. If he finds out she's cooperating with us. We'll keep her safe, Robert said firmly. We'll keep all of us safe. We're in this together now. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Sophie explained the financial crimes in detail. James outlined the legal strategy. Patricia shared names of other household staff Alexander had fired over the years, people who might be willing to testify about what they'd seen. By the time we finished, it was getting dark. I checked my phone. 6 messages from Alexander. Where are you? The meeting should be over by now. Call me. Miguel says he hasn't heard from you. Naomi, this isn't funny. Call me immediately. I have to go, I said. He's getting suspicious. Be careful, Patricia said, hugging me. That man is dangerous. I know, I said. But I'm done being afraid of him. I took a taxi back to Manhattan and called Alexander from the car. Where have you been? He demanded. I've been calling for an hour. The meeting ran late, I said. We had a lot to discuss. Then we went to dinner. You should have told me. Miguel was worried. Since when do you care about Miguel being worried? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Silence on the other end. Then, come home. Now. He hung up. I sat back in the taxi, my heart racing. I was playing a dangerous game. But for the first time in 15 years, I felt alive. I felt like myself. When I got home, Alexander was waiting in the living room. He'd been drinking. I could tell by the way he stood. By the flush in his cheeks. Where were you really? He asked. I told you. Charity committee meeting. You're lying. I'm not. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. Stood inches from me. I could smell the whiskey on his breath. You've been different lately, he said. Distant. Secretive. What are you up to, Naomi? Nothing. You're being paranoid. Am I? His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt. Just hard enough to remind me that he could. You think I don't notice? You think I'm stupid? Let go of me, Alexander. Tell me the truth. I did tell you the truth. I jerked my arm free. I was at a meeting. I had dinner with friends. That's all. You're drunk and you're being ridiculous. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt maybe. Or calculation. Then he stepped back. Fine, he said. But I'm warning you, Naomi. I built everything we have. This life. This home. Don't forget that. Don't forget what you'd lose if you did something stupid. I won't forget, I said quietly. He turned and walked away. I stood there, my wrist throbbing where he'd grabbed it, and thought, you have no idea what's coming. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I barely recognized. During the day, I played the perfect wife. I smiled at Alexander's business dinners. I wore the right clothes. I said the right things. I pretended everything was fine. At night, after he fell asleep, I became someone else. I copied every file I could find. Financial records. Emails. Text messages. Photos. Alexander kept everything on his computer because he thought he was untouchable. He thought no one would ever dare look. He was wrong. Sophie helped me understand the financial documents. We'd meet at coffee shops in Brooklyn, far from anywhere Alexander or his associates might go. She'd spread papers across the table, pointing out the patterns. Money moved from Sterling Enterprises to shell companies, then to offshore accounts, then back again, cleaned and untraceable. Except it wasn't untraceable. Sophie could trace every dollar. This is beautiful, she said one afternoon, studying a spreadsheet I'd copied. In a terrible way. He's been doing this for at least 10 years. Maybe longer. Millions of dollars in unpaid taxes. If the IRS sees this, they'll have a field day. How much are we talking about? I asked. Conservatively? 30 million in tax evasion. Maybe more. She looked up at me. He's going to prison, Naomi. When this comes out, he's going to prison. The thought should have scared me. 15 years ago, it would have devastated me. But now, all I felt was a cold satisfaction. James was working on the legal strategy. He'd reached out to contacts at the FBI and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Quietly. Carefully. Planting seeds. Letting them know that a major case might be coming their way. We need to time this perfectly, he explained during one of our meetings at Robert's apartment. If we go too early before we have everything, Alexander's lawyers will shut us down. They'll get injunctions. They'll bury us in paperwork. But if we wait too long, he'll find out what we're doing, I finished. Exactly. Patricia had been contacting other former employees. People Alexander had fired over the years. Some were scared. Some refused to talk. But others wanted revenge as much as we did. By the end of the second week, we had 12 people willing to testify. 12 lives Alexander had destroyed. Each one had a story. Each one had evidence. Carla was still at the extended stay hotel. I'd been visiting her twice a week, bringing food, making sure she had everything she needed. Her belly was growing rounder. She was 7 months pregnant now. Sometimes I'd sit with her and feel the baby kick, and I'd think about how twisted this all was. My husband's child. Growing inside another woman. A woman he'd used and threatened and tried to destroy. I want to help, Carla said one afternoon. I want to testify. I want to tell people what he did. Are you sure? I asked. It won't be easy. His lawyers will come after you. They'll try to discredit you. Make you look like you're lying. I don't care. She put her hand on her stomach. I'm doing this for my baby. So they don't grow up thinking what their father did was okay. So they know their mother stood up for what was right. I squeezed her hand. Thank you. No, she said. Thank you. You didn't have to help me. You could have hated me. You could have turned your back. But you didn't. Why? I thought about it. Because you're not my enemy. Alexander is. You were just another person he used. Just like me. At home, things were getting worse. Alexander was drinking more. Watching me more closely. He'd started checking my phone, going through my things. I'd gotten a second phone, a cheap prepaid cell I kept hidden in my gym bag. That was the one I used to talk to Robert, Sophie, James, Patricia, Carla. One night, Alexander came into the guest bedroom where I'd been sleeping. It was after midnight. I'd been lying awake, thinking about everything we'd discovered, everything we still needed to do. We need to talk, he said. I sat up. About what? About us. He sat on the edge of the bed. He looked tired. Older. I know things haven't been good between us lately. No, I said. They haven't. Maybe we should take a trip. Get away. Just the two of us. Remember what we used to have. And what did we used to have, Alexander? He looked at me. Really looked at me. I know I haven't been the best husband. I know I've been distant. Focused too much on work. But I do care about you, Naomi. I don't want to lose you. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered Carla. Patricia. Robert. All the others. I remembered the plans he'd made to tamper with my car. To hurt me. To make me dependent on him again. It's too late, I said quietly. What do you mean? I mean it's too late for us, Alexander. Whatever we had, it's gone. His expression changed. Hardened. You're not leaving me. What? Because you won't let me? Because you'd have nothing without me. He stood up. This apartment. Your clothes. Your lifestyle. Everything you have, I gave you. You think you can just walk away? I think I can do whatever I want. He laughed. It was an ugly sound. You really are naive. You signed a prenup, remember? If you leave me, you get nothing. Not a dollar. Meanwhile, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of wife you were. Distant. Cold. Difficult. I'll make sure you're blacklisted from every charity board, every social circle. You'll be nobody. Maybe I want to be nobody, I said. Maybe I'm tired of being Mrs. Alexander Sterling. He stared at me. For a second, I saw something in his eyes. Fear maybe. Then it was gone, replaced by rage. You'll regret this, he said. He walked out, slamming the door behind him. I sat there in the dark, my heart pounding. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I need to move faster. The next morning I called James. We need to accelerate the timeline, I said. Alexander knows something is wrong. I don't know how much longer I can stay here safely. How fast can you get the rest of the files? He asked. 2 days. Maybe 3. Then get them. I'll set up meetings with the FBI and SEC for next week. We'll present everything at once. Overwhelming force. What about Carla? What about the others? I'll coordinate with everyone. Make sure they're ready to give statements. But Naomi, once we do this, there's no going back. Your life is going to change. Dramatically. Are you ready for that? I thought about the last 15 years. About being silenced. Controlled. Treated like a possession instead of a person. I'm ready, I said. That night, after Alexander fell asleep, I went into his study one last time. I copied the final files. Bank statements. Emails discussing bribes. Photos of documents he should never have had, confidential information he'd used for insider trading. It took 3 hours. By the time I finished, it was 4 in the morning. My eyes burned. My hands shook from exhaustion and adrenaline. But I had everything. I locked the study door and crept back to the guest bedroom. I lay down on the bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. In 1 week, Alexander's world would collapse. And mine would finally begin. 3 days later, Alexander found the second phone. I'd gotten careless. Exhausted from late nights copying files, from keeping up the act during the day, from the constant stress of living with someone who wanted to control me, I'd left it in my jacket pocket instead of hiding it in my gym bag. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Alexander walked in. He held up the cheap prepaid cell like it was evidence at a trial. "What is this?" he asked. My blood went cold. "A phone." "I can see that. Why do you have a second phone, Naomi?" My mind raced. I needed a lie. Something believable. "It's for the charity. Sometimes donors want to reach me directly. I didn't want them calling my personal number at all hours." "Really?" He turned the phone over in his hands. "So if I look through the call history, I'll see charity donors?" "Yes." "You're lying." "I'm not." He opened the phone. I'd been careful. I deleted messages. But the call log was still there. Multiple calls to the same number. Robert's number. Alexander's face went white, then red. "Robert Patterson. My former driver. You've been calling him. For weeks." "He needed help," I said. "I felt bad about how you fired him. So you've been talking to him behind my back." Alexander's voice was getting louder. "What else have you been doing behind my back?" "Nothing." "Don't lie to me." He threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know you've been sneaking around?" "I haven't been sneaking around." "Then what do you call this?" He stepped toward me. "Secret phones. Meetings with people I fired. You've been different for weeks. Cold. Distant. What are you planning?" "Nothing. I'm not planning anything." I should have known. He was in my face now. I should have known you'd turn on me. Just like all the others. Always looking for a way to stab me in the back. "Alexander, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" His hand shot out and grabbed my arm. "Harder than last time. Hard enough to hurt. Tell me the truth. What have you been doing?" "Let go of me." "Not until you tell me the truth." "The truth?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the pain in my arm. Maybe it was weeks of fear and anger and pretending. Maybe I was just tired of being afraid. "You want the truth? Fine. I know about Carla. I know about her baby." "Your baby." His grip loosened slightly. "What?" "I know about all of them. Melissa, Stephanie, Jennifer, Rachel. All the women. All the affairs. Years and years of lies." "Naomi." "I know about the offshore accounts. The tax evasion. The bribes. I know about Sophie and James and Patricia and Robert and every other person you've destroyed just because you could." His face went pale. "How do you?" "I went through your files, Alexander. I copied everything. Every document. Every email. Every dirty little secret you thought no one would ever find." He let go of my arm. Stepped back. For a second he looked almost frightened. Then his expression changed. Became cold. Calculating. "You have no idea what you've done," he said quietly. "I know exactly what I've done." "Do you?" He laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You think you can use that information against me? You think anyone will believe you? You're my wife, Naomi. If you try to expose me, I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone you're lying. That you're unstable. Having a breakdown. I'll make sure no one believes a word you say. You can try. I'll take everything from you. Every penny. You'll be left with nothing. I don't care about the money." "Then what do you care about?" He was shouting now. "What do you want?" "I want a divorce," I said. "I want you out of my life. And I want you to pay for what you've done to all those people." "You're insane." "Maybe. But I'm done. I'm done pretending. I'm done being your perfect wife. I'm done letting you control me." He stared at me. I could see his mind working, trying to figure out his next move. How to regain control. "Fine," he said finally. "You want a divorce? You can have a divorce. But you're not getting a penny. The prenup is ironclad. My lawyers made sure of that. You'll leave with exactly what you brought into this marriage. Nothing." "That's fine. And the files you stole? You better delete them. Because if you try to use them, I'll have you charged with theft. Corporate espionage. I'll make sure you go to prison. Go ahead and try. You're bluffing. Am I? We stood there 2 feet apart staring at each other. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of pretending. All of it ending in this moment. In this ugly, angry confrontation. Get out, Alexander said. Pack your things and get out of my apartment. Gladly. I walked past him, my arm throbbing where he'd grabbed it. I went to the guest bedroom and pulled out my suitcase. I didn't have much. Most of my clothes were designer things Alexander had bought me. I didn't want them. I packed my old jeans, my comfortable shoes, my mother's jewelry. The things that were actually mine. It took 15 minutes. Alexander watched from the doorway as I zipped the suitcase. Where will you go? You have no money. No job. No skills. I'll figure it out. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're weak, Naomi. You've always been weak. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd spent 15 years with. This man I thought I loved. You're right, I said. I was weak. But not anymore. I walked past him, pulling my suitcase behind me. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. But I kept walking. Out of the guest bedroom. Through the living room. Past the expensive furniture and the expensive art and all the expensive things that had never made me happy. To the front door. You'll regret this, Alexander called after me. I'll make sure of it. I'll destroy you. Just like I destroyed all the others. I paused at the door. Turned back. No, Alexander. I'm going to destroy you. Then I walked out. I took the elevator down to the lobby. The doorman looked surprised to see me with a suitcase. Mrs. Sterling? Are you going somewhere? Yes, I said. Somewhere better. I walked out into the bright afternoon sun. For a moment I just stood there on the sidewalk, breathing. Free. Then I pulled out my regular phone and called Robert. It's done, I said. He knows. I'm out. Are you safe? Yes. But we need to move fast. He's going to try to hide evidence. Move money. We need to go to the authorities now. I'll call James. Where are you? I don't know yet. I'll find a hotel. Come to my place. You can stay here until we figure things out. Robert, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Come to Queens. You'll be safe here. I took a taxi to Robert's building. By the time I arrived, my phone was blowing up with messages from Alexander. You made a huge mistake. I'm going to ruin you. You think you can threaten me? I'll make sure you have nothing. Nothing. I turned off the phone and went upstairs. Robert made me tea. Patricia was already there. She'd brought food. Sophie arrived an hour later, followed by James. Tell us everything, James said. I did. I told them about the confrontation. About Alexander's threats. About how he'd found the second phone. We need to move immediately, James said. Tonight if possible. I have contacts at the FBI. I'll call them now. We'll turn over everything we have. What about me? I asked. What do I do? You stay safe, Patricia said firmly. You stay here with Robert. You don't talk to Alexander. You don't go near that apartment. You let us handle this. But, Naomi. Sophie took my hand. You've done enough. You got us the evidence. Now let us take it from here. You need to rest. To recover. You've been living in a war zone. She was right. I was exhausted. Emotionally. Physically. Mentally. Okay, I said. What happens next? Next, James said, pulling out his phone, we bring down a billionaire. James made the call that night. I sat on Robert's couch, wrapped in a blanket Patricia had brought, listening to him talk to someone at the FBI. Yes, I understand. Multiple counts. Tax evasion, securities fraud, bribery of public officials. I have documentation. Extensive documentation. And multiple witnesses. Pause. Tomorrow morning? Yes, we can do that. 10 o'clock. We'll be there. He hung up and looked at us. They're interested. Very interested. They want to see everything we have. Will they protect Naomi? Robert asked. If Alexander finds out she's cooperating, they'll offer protection if they think it's necessary, James said. But right now the best protection is moving fast. If we can get charges filed quickly, Alexander won't have time to retaliate. That night I barely slept. I lay on Robert's couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what was coming. Tomorrow morning, I'd walk into the FBI field office and officially become the person who turned in her husband. Part of me still couldn't believe this was happening. That I was doing this. But then I thought about Carla, alone and pregnant. About Robert struggling to find work. About Sophie, James, Patricia, and all the others. About how Alexander had destroyed lives without blinking. I thought about how he'd planned to hurt me. To make me dependent on him through fear. No, I wasn't going to back down. Not now. The next morning we met Bethany Rodriguez at a coffee shop in Manhattan. James had recommended her as the best divorce attorney in the city. Someone who'd gone up against powerful men before and won. Bethany was in her 40s with short black hair and sharp brown eyes. She wore a blue power suit and carried herself like someone who didn't take nonsense from anyone. "I've reviewed the prenuptial agreement," she said, spreading papers across the table. "Alexander's lawyers did good work. On paper it looks ironclad. You leave with nothing." My heart sank. "So I can't fight it?" "I didn't say that." Bethany smiled. It was a fierce smile. "The prenup is only valid if both parties acted in good faith. If Alexander committed fraud during the marriage, which the tax evasion and offshore accounts clearly demonstrate, then the prenup is invalid. Additionally, if he acquired assets through illegal means during the marriage, those assets are subject to seizure. Which means there's no marital property to divide anyway. So what does that mean for me? It means we ask for nothing from him. We don't fight over money. We just want the marriage dissolved. Clean break. It makes you look reasonable. It makes him look like he has nothing to hide. But privately you're the star witness in a federal criminal case. You have all the leverage." "He threatened me," I said. "He said he'd have me charged with theft. For copying the files." "He won't." Bethany was confident. "Because if he does, he has to explain why those files are incriminating. Why he's so desperate to hide them. It would be an admission of guilt. His lawyers will tell him to stay quiet and hope this goes away." "It's not going away," I said. "No, it's not." At 10 o'clock, we walked into the FBI field office in Lower Manhattan. James, Sophie, and I. Robert and Patricia stayed behind, but they'd given detailed statements that James carried in a folder. The agents who met us were professional. Serious. A man named Agent Mitchell and a woman named Agent Torres. They led us to a conference room and closed the door. "We understand you have information about Alexander Sterling," Agent Mitchell said. "Yes." James opened his briefcase. "Extensive information. Tax evasion spanning at least 10 years. Securities fraud. Insider trading. Bribery of public officials." He laid out the documents. One by one. Bank statements showing money moved to offshore accounts. Emails discussing illegal trades. Photos of confidential documents Alexander had obtained improperly. Records of cash payments to city council members. Agent Torres leaned forward, studying the papers. "Where did you get these?" "From Alexander Sterling's personal computer," I said. "I'm his wife. I had access to his home office." "Did you have permission to access these files?" I hesitated. "No. But I'm not stealing them for personal gain. I'm turning them over because they're evidence of crimes." The agents looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. "This is substantial," Agent Mitchell said finally. "If it's all legitimate, this is enough to open a formal investigation. Maybe more than one investigation. The IRS will want to see the tax information. The SEC will want the securities fraud evidence." "It's all legitimate," I said. "I can verify the source of every document." "We'll need formal statements from all of you," Agent Torres said. "And from your other witnesses. This is going to take time." "How much time?" Sophie asked. "Weeks, maybe months. We need to verify everything. Build a case that will stand up in court. This isn't something we can rush." "But he'll find out we're investigating," I said. "He'll try to hide evidence. Move money." "We'll freeze his accounts," Agent Mitchell said. "As soon as we have enough to convince a judge. He won't be able to move anything without us knowing." We spent 6 hours at the FBI office. Giving statements. Answering questions. Going through every document in detail. By the time we finished, it was late afternoon and I was exhausted. "What happens now?" I asked as we prepared to leave. "Now we investigate," Agent Torres said. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, stay safe. Don't contact Mr. Sterling. Don't go anywhere alone. If he tries to reach you, document everything but don't respond." "Will she be safe?" James asked. "We'll monitor the situation. If we think there's a credible threat, we'll provide protection. But right now, Mr. Sterling doesn't know we're investigating. That's our advantage." We left the FBI office and stood on the street, blinking in the bright sunlight. "You did it," Sophie said, hugging me. "You really did it." "We're not done yet," I said. "This is just the beginning." But she was right. Something had shifted. For the first time since all of this started, I felt hope. Over the next week, things moved quickly. The FBI contacted the IRS and the SEC. More agents got involved. More interviews. More statements. Carla came forward publicly. She gave an interview to a reporter James knew, someone trustworthy. She told her story. About the affair. About the pregnancy. About Alexander's threats. The story broke on a Thursday morning. By noon it was everywhere. News sites. Social media. Television. Sterling Enterprises CEO accused of affair with employee, threats of retaliation. My phone, which I'd turned back on, exploded with messages. Friends. Acquaintances. People I hadn't talked to in years. Everyone wanted to know if it was true. Alexander called 17 times. I didn't answer. His lawyers called. His business partners called. His mother called, screaming about how I was destroying the family name. I turned the phone off again. That afternoon, 2 more women came forward. Former employees. They'd had affairs with Alexander too. He'd promised them promotions, then fired them when they got too demanding. By Friday the story had grown. Pattern of abuse at Sterling Enterprises. Multiple women speak out. And then the SEC announced they were opening a formal investigation into Sterling Enterprises' financial practices. The dam had broken. I watched it all from Robert's apartment, feeling strangely detached. This was my husband. My life. Falling apart on national television. But mostly what I felt was relief. On Saturday morning, Agent Torres called. "We're going to execute search warrants on Monday," she said. "Mr. Sterling's home, his office, his financial records. We'll be bringing him in for questioning. I wanted to give you a heads up." "Thank you," I said. "One more thing. We found evidence he was planning to leave the country. He'd booked a private flight to the Cayman Islands for next week. We've flagged his passport. He's not going anywhere." After I hung up, I sat on Robert's couch and cried. Not from sadness. From relief. From exhaustion. From everything. Patricia sat next to me and held my hand. "It's okay. Let it out. You've been holding this in for weeks." "I was so scared," I said. "The whole time. I was terrified he'd find out. That he'd hurt me. That this wouldn't work. But it did work. You did it." "We did it," I corrected. "All of us. That night we had dinner together. Robert, Sophie, James, Patricia, and me. We ordered Chinese food and ate it sitting on the floor of Robert's living room because he didn't have enough chairs." "To justice," James said, raising his glass of water. "To justice," we echoed. And for the first time in weeks I smiled. The FBI raids happened early Monday morning. I heard about it from Agent Torres, who called at 6:30. "It's happening now. We're at his office and his apartment. We've already seized several computers and boxes of documents. Mr. Sterling is being brought in for questioning." "Is he under arrest?" "Not yet. But soon. We have enough to charge him. We're just deciding which charges to file first." I hung up and turned on the news. By 7, cameras were outside Sterling Enterprises headquarters, filming FBI agents carrying boxes. By 8, footage of agents entering the penthouse apartment. By 9, a photo of Alexander being escorted into a federal building, his face tight with rage. I should have felt triumphant. But mostly I felt tired. Over the next week, more charges were filed. Tax evasion. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Bribery. Each new charge was another headline. Another nail in Alexander's coffin. His lawyers tried to paint me as a bitter wife seeking revenge. They held a press conference claiming I'd stolen confidential business information. That I was unstable. Having a breakdown. But by then too many people had come forward. Too many witnesses. Too many documents. The case was building momentum. Federal prosecutors were calling it one of the biggest white-collar crime cases in years. Alexander Sterling, Billionaire CEO, headed for prison. 2 weeks after the raids, Bethany called me. "Alexander's lawyers want to meet. They're proposing a settlement. He'll agree to the divorce. Give you a reasonable settlement. $3 million. In exchange, you agree not to testify against him." "No," I said immediately. "I thought you'd say that." But I had to present the offer. "They're desperate. They know your testimony will bury him." Good. $3 million would have changed my life a year ago. But now all I wanted was justice. That night Alexander called. I don't know how he got my new number. Maybe one of his people tracked it down. Maybe he bribed someone. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Naomi. His voice was different. Broken. Please. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I'm begging you. Don't testify. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to you? I laughed. It was a bitter sound. You planned to hurt me, Alexander. You paid Carla to tamper with my car. You threatened her. You destroyed dozens of lives. And now you want me to feel sorry for you? I never meant to hurt you. I needed you to need me again. You'd become so independent. So distant. So you decided to terrify me instead? I made mistakes. I know that. But we can fix this. We can start over. There is no starting over. There's just the consequences of your choices. If you testify, I'll go to prison. For years. Maybe decades. Is that what you want? What I want is for you to face justice. What I want is for you to understand that you can't destroy people without consequences. Naomi. Goodbye, Alexander. I hung up. He called back 17 times. I blocked the number. A month later, the trial date was set. Federal prosecutors were going after him hard. 3 different agencies. Multiple charges. It would be a long trial. Probably several months. But they were confident. With the evidence we'd provided, with the witnesses, with everything, they thought conviction was almost certain. Bethany finalized the divorce papers. I asked for nothing. Not the apartment. Not the cars. Not the jewelry. Just my freedom. Alexander's lawyers tried to fight even that. They claimed I'd violated the prenup by cooperating with federal investigators. But Bethany shut them down fast. The prenup didn't say anything about cooperating with law enforcement. And besides, the prenup was invalid because Alexander had committed fraud during our marriage. The divorce was granted in early spring. 15 years of marriage ended with a judge's signature. I walked out of the courthouse a free woman. But I wasn't done yet. The criminal trial was still coming. The prosecution needed me. I was their star witness. I had the documents. I had the inside knowledge. I could explain how Alexander operated. How he'd hidden his crimes. How he'd destroyed anyone who got in his way. Carla would testify too. And Sophie. And James. And Patricia. And Robert. And all the others. Alexander's lawyers tried to get our testimonies thrown out. They filed motion after motion. But the judge denied them all. The evidence was legitimate. The witnesses were credible. 2 weeks before the trial was set to begin, Alexander held a charity gala. One last event before everything fell apart completely. His lawyers thought it would make him look good. Charitable. Innocent. I heard about it from Sophie, who saw it on social media. He's still pretending everything is fine. Like he's not about to go to prison. An idea started forming in my mind. What if I went? I said. What? Sophie looked at me like I was crazy. Why would you go? Because I want him to see me. I want him to know I'm not afraid of him anymore. I want him to know I'm the one who destroyed his empire. Naomi, that's dangerous. He's unstable. Who knows what he might do? He won't do anything. Not in public. Not with cameras everywhere. But I'll wear a wire. Just in case. If he says anything incriminating, we'll have it on tape. Sophie called James. James called Agent Torres. By that evening we had a plan. I'd go to the gala. I'd wear a wire. I'd try to get Alexander to talk. To confess. To say something that would guarantee his conviction. The gala was on a Saturday night at the Riverside Hotel. The same hotel where Alexander and I had gotten married 15 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. I bought a new dress. Red. Bull. The kind of dress Alexander would hate. The kind that said I wasn't his property anymore. Patricia helped me get ready. She did my hair, pinned up with red flowers. She did my makeup, dramatic and beautiful. You look fierce, she said. Like a warrior. That's how I feel, I said. The FBI fitted me with a wire. A tiny microphone hidden in a necklace. A recorder in my purse. Agent Torres went over the plan one more time. Don't push too hard. If he gets suspicious, back off. We just want him talking. Anything he says can help us. I understand. And Naomi? Be careful. He's desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things. I arrived at the gala at 8 o'clock. The ballroom was full of people. Society types. Business associates. People who still believed in Alexander Sterling. Or pretended to. I walked through the crowd in my red dress and people stared. Whispered. The woman who'd turned in her husband. The wife who'd betrayed him. Let them talk. I found Alexander on the balcony, overlooking the river. He was alone, drinking scotch, staring out at the water. Hello, Alexander, I said. He turned. His face went through several expressions. Anger. Something that might have been pain. You came, he said. I wanted to see you. One last time before the trial. Why? To gloat? No. To give you a chance to do the right thing. He laughed bitterly. The right thing. What would that be? Plead guilty. Take responsibility. Stop dragging everyone through this. You want me to just give up? Go to prison without a fight? I want you to admit what you did. To all those people. To me. He took a long drink. You destroyed me, Naomi. You took everything. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure people knew about it. I loved you. His voice cracked. Everything I did for us. For our life together. You didn't love me. You own me. There's a difference. Is there? He turned to face me fully. I gave you everything. Everything you have because of me. Everything I have because I finally stood up for myself. You think you're so noble, so righteous, but you're just like me, Naomi. You're just like all of them. Looking for an angle. Looking for a way to win. Maybe. But I'm not the one going to prison. His expression darkened. Not yet. But the trial hasn't happened yet. My lawyers are good. The best. They'll tear apart your testimony. Make you look like a liar. A bitter ex-wife. Let them try. You have no idea what's coming. In court they'll bring up everything. Every time you spent my money. Every benefit you got from being my wife. They'll make the jury see you as a gold digger who turned on me when things got tough. I don't care what they say about me. I know the truth. The truth. He laughed. It was an ugly sound. The truth is that you were nothing before me. A nobody. I made you someone. And this is how you repay me. By stabbing me in the back. You planned to hurt me, Alexander. You paid Carla to cut my brake lines. You wanted me injured. Afraid. Dependent on you again. You went very still. I never told you to cut the brake lines. No. But you paid her to do it. You planned it. That's the same thing. She was supposed to just loosen them a little. Make you have a small accident. Nothing serious. My heart stopped. He just confessed. On tape. The FBI was recording every word. Nothing serious? I repeated, making sure it was clear. You planned to tamper with my car. To cause an accident. That's attempted murder, Alexander. He realized what he'd said. His face went pale. You're recording this? Yes. You. He grabbed my arm. Art. Give me the wire. Let go of me. Give it to me now. Security is watching. Let go or they'll arrest you right here. He looked around. Saw the security guard by the door. Saw other guests glancing over. Saw the cameras. He let go. I'll see you in court, I said quietly. And everyone will hear what you just admitted. I walked away, my heart pounding, his rage burning into my back. I made it to the lobby before my legs gave out. I sat on a bench, shaking. Agent Torres appeared out of nowhere. Are you okay? I got it. He confessed. To planning the accident. It's all on tape. She smiled grimly. Then we have him. Completely. 2 days later, Alexander was arrested on additional charges. Attempted vehicular assault. Based on his confession at the gala. His lawyers went crazy. They claimed entrapment. They claimed I'd manipulated him. But the tape was clear. He'd admitted to planning to hurt me. In his own words, the trial was still weeks away. But everyone knew it was over. Alexander Sterling was going to prison. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in late spring. The courthouse was surrounded by news cameras. Reporters. Protesters. Some supporting Alexander, claiming he was being persecuted. Others demanding justice for his victims. I arrived with Bethany, flanked by federal agents. We'd received threats over the past weeks. Angry messages from Alexander's supporters. Accusations that I was destroying a great man for petty revenge. But there were other messages too. From people thanking me. From former employees who'd been too afraid to speak up. From women who'd experienced harassment and seen powerful men get away with it. You're doing the right thing, one email said. Don't let them make you doubt that. The courtroom was packed. I sat in the front row behind the prosecutors. Across the aisle, Alexander sat with his lawyers. 4 of them. All expensive suits and confident expressions. He looked older than I remembered. Thinner. His hair was grayer. But his eyes were still hard when he looked at me. Full of rage. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Judge Patricia Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s who'd handled high-profile cases before. The United States versus Alexander Sterling, the bailiff announced. The trial would last weeks. Multiple witnesses. Hundreds of documents. Expert testimony about financial crimes and securities fraud. But the prosecutors started with the human stories. The people Alexander had destroyed. Robert testified first. He described working for Alexander for 12 years. Being loyal. Being careful. Then being fired without warning or severance. Having his reputation destroyed so he couldn't find work. He told everyone I was a thief, Robert said. I've never stolen anything in my life. But nobody would hire me after that. I lost everything. Alexander's lawyers tried to discredit him on cross-examination. But Robert stayed calm. Told the truth. Sophie testified next. She described finding irregularities in the financial records. Asking questions. Being told to mind her own business. Then being fired and blacklisted. James testified about the bribes. The illegal contracts. How Alexander had destroyed his career when he tried to do the right thing. Patricia testified about seeing Alexander with another woman. About being arrested for theft she didn't commit. About how that accusation had followed her for years. One by one they told their stories. And the jury listened. Then it was Carla's turn. She was 8 months pregnant now. Huge belly. Swollen ankles. She walked slowly to the witness stand, her hand on her lower back. The prosecutor approached gently. Ms. Bennett, can you tell the court about your relationship with the defendant? Carla took a breath. I worked as his executive assistant for 3 years. About a year ago he started showing interest in me. Asking me to stay late. Complimenting me. I was flattered. He was powerful, successful. I thought he genuinely cared about me. What happened next? We started an affair. He said his marriage was over. That he and his wife were basically separated. He said he'd leave her for me. Carla's voice cracked. I believed him. When did you discover you were pregnant? 6 months ago. I told Mr. Sterling right away. I thought he'd be happy. Instead he fired me. He gave me $5,000 and told me to disappear. He said if I told anyone about the baby, he'd destroy me. Did he threaten you in any other way? Yes. Carla looked at Alexander. He stared back, his face impassive. He gave me $10,000 and asked me to tamper with his wife's car. Cut the brake line. He said she'd have a small accident. Get hurt just enough to need him again. He said if I didn't do it, he'd make sure I never worked anywhere in this city. He'd tell everyone I'd stolen from him. He'd ruin me. The courtroom erupted. Whispers. Gasp. The judge banged her gavel. Order. I will have order. Alexander's lawyers immediately objected. Claimed Carla was lying. But the prosecutor played the tape from the gala. Alexander's own voice admitting to planning the accident. The jury looked shocked. Horrified. After Carla it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand on shaky legs. I'd practiced my testimony 100 times. But actually being there, with Alexander staring at me with the jury watching, was different. I swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor approached. Mrs. Sterling, can you tell the court how long you were married to the defendant? 15 years. And during that time were you aware of his business practices? No. Not until recently. Alexander kept his business separate from our personal life. I hosted his events. Attended his dinners. But I didn't know what he was doing behind the scenes. What changed? I took a breath. Robert Patterson, Alexander's former driver, warned me not to get in my car one morning. He told me to take the bus instead. When I did, I saw Carla Bennett. She was pregnant. She told me about the affair. About Alexander's threats. About his plan to hurt me. What did you do then? I went home and accessed Alexander's computer. I found evidence of multiple affairs. Financial crimes. Tax evasion. Offshore accounts. Bribes. Evidence that he'd systematically destroyed anyone who questioned him or threatened to expose him. Why did you come forward with this information? Because it was the right thing to do. I looked at the jury. My husband committed crimes. Serious crimes. He hurt people. Destroyed lives. Someone had to stop him. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Sterling. Then it was the defense's turn. Alexander's lead attorney was a man named Richard Cross. Expensive suit. Slick back hair. Aggressive reputation. He approached me like a predator. Mrs. Sterling, you admit you accessed your husband's private computer without permission. Isn't that illegal? I was his wife. I had access to our home. To the computers in our home. But you knew these were private business files. Confidential files. You stole them. I turned over evidence of crimes to law enforcement. That's not theft. Convenient. You claim you were concerned about his victims. But isn't it true you were angry? You'd discovered his affair. You wanted revenge. I wanted justice. Justice or revenge. Aren't they the same thing in your mind? No, they're not. You lived well for 15 years. Luxury apartment. Designer clothes. Private drivers. Vacations. You enjoyed the fruits of your husband's success. But when you found out about his personal failings, suddenly you became a crusader for justice. I didn't know about the crimes until after I found out about the affairs. Didn't you? Or did you just choose not to look? Choose not to ask questions? I felt my anger rising. I trusted my husband. I believed he was an honest businessman. I was wrong. Were you? Or were you complicit? Did you know what he was doing and just not care until it personally affected you? Objection. The prosecutor stood. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Cross, move on. The cross-examination lasted 2 hours. Cross tried to paint me as vindictive, opportunistic, a gold digger who'd turned on her husband. But I stayed calm, told the truth, and eventually he ran out of questions. When I stepped down from the witness stand, I was exhausted. But I'd done it. I told the truth. The trial continued for 3 more weeks. Financial experts testified about the offshore accounts. SEC investigators testified about the securities fraud. FBI agents testified about the bribes. Alexander's lawyers tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that the witnesses were biased, that Alexander was being persecuted for being successful. But the jury wasn't buying it. On a Friday afternoon, closing arguments finished. The judge gave instructions. The jury went to deliberate. We waited. 2 days. 3. I stayed at a hotel near the courthouse, too anxious to go far. On the 3rd day the jury came back. The courtroom filled quickly. I sat in the front row again, my hands clasped tight in my lap. Bethany sat next to me. Behind me, Robert, Sophie, James, and Patricia. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Alexander. That was a bad sign. For him. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. The foreperson stood. An older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. On the charge of tax evasion, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of securities fraud? Guilty. On the charge of bribery? Guilty. On and on. Guilty. 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 Every charge. 23 counts. All guilty. Alexander's face went white. His lawyers tried to maintain composure, but I could see their shock. The judge set sentencing for 2 months later. But everyone knew what was coming. Alexander Sterling was going to prison. For a long, long time. As they led him away, he looked at me one last time. I met his eyes. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. Just a quiet satisfaction. Justice. Outside the courthouse, cameras swarmed us. Reporters shouting questions. I gave a brief statement, written with Bethany's help. Today justice was served. Not just for me but for everyone Alexander Sterling hurt over the years. I hope this sends a message that no one is above the law. No matter how wealthy. No matter how powerful. That was all I said. Then I left. 2 months later, Alexander was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison. He'd be eligible for parole in 20 years. But by then he'd be in his 70s. His life as he knew it was over. I didn't attend the sentencing. I'd said everything I needed to say. Instead, I was across town at the office of my new foundation. Starting my new life. The Sterling Foundation for Workplace Justice opened on a bright morning in early summer. We'd rented space in a modest building in Brooklyn, far from the gleaming towers of Manhattan where Alexander had ruled. The office wasn't fancy. Just 3 rooms. A small reception area. A conference room. An office that Robert, Sophie, James, Patricia, and I would share. But it was ours. The divorce settlement had given me nothing from Alexander. But the court had determined that certain assets acquired legally before his criminal activities could be divided. That came to about $4 million. More than I'd ever dreamed of having. I put $2 million into the foundation. Kept $1 million for myself. Gave the remaining $1 million to Carla for her baby's future. She'd given birth to a girl. Emma. A beautiful baby with dark eyes and a strong cry. Carla had sent me photos. She was living in New Jersey now, starting over. Working as an administrative assistant at a small company owned by a woman who believed in second chances. The foundation's mission was simple. Help people who'd been wronged by corporate abuse. Provide legal assistance. Job placement. Financial support. Whatever they needed to rebuild their lives. Our first clients were the people Alexander had destroyed. We helped Robert find a new job as a transportation coordinator at a nonprofit. We helped Sophie get her accounting license reinstated and connected her with ethical firms. We helped James rebuild his legal practice, specializing in employment law. Patricia became our office manager. She'd always been good at organizing things, keeping track of details. Now she did it for a cause she believed in. Word spread quickly. Other people started reaching out. People who'd been fired unjustly, harassed, discriminated against. People who'd been afraid to speak up because they didn't have resources to fight back. We helped them all. 6 months after we opened, a young woman named Teresa came to our office. She'd been fired from a tech company after reporting sexual harassment. Her former employer had blacklisted her, making it impossible to find work in her field. We connected her with James. He took her case. 6 months later, she won a settlement and got her job back. The company implemented new harassment policies, changed their culture. One person, one life change. It felt like more of an accomplishment than anything I'd done in 15 years as Mrs. Alexander Sterling. The foundation grew. We hired more staff, opened a second office in Queens, started offering workshops on employee rights, on how to document workplace abuse, on how to fight back against powerful people who thought they were untouchable. And slowly I healed. I'd spent so long being Alexander's wife, being controlled, being afraid. I'd forgotten who I was underneath all that. Now I was remembering. I took art classes, something I'd loved as a young woman but given up when I married Alexander. He'd said art was a hobby, not something a serious person pursued. I started painting again. Bright colors, bold strokes, abstract pieces that expressed everything I'd felt but couldn't say during those years. I made friends, real friends. Not the society people who'd surrounded Alexander. Not the women who'd only talked to me because of who my husband was. Patricia became like a mother to me. Sophie became like a sister. Robert became the father figure I'd never had. James became my voice of reason. We were a family, bound not by blood but by shared experience, by surviving something terrible together. A year after the foundation opened, we held a gala fundraiser. Not at the Riverside Hotel where Alexander had held his events. At a community center in Brooklyn. With real food instead of fancy catering. With people who'd been helped by the foundation telling their stories. 200 people came. We raised $500,000 for the foundation. At the end of the night, I stood at the podium to give a speech. I looked out at the crowd. At the survivors. The fighters. The people who'd refused to stay silent. Thank you all for coming, I said. A year ago, I walked out of my marriage with nothing but a suitcase and the truth. I was terrified. I didn't know what would happen. If people would believe me. If justice would prevail. I paused. But I wasn't alone. I had people who stood with me. People who'd been hurt by the same man who hurt me. People who believed that no one should be above the law. I gestured to Robert, Sophie, James, and Patricia. These people saved me. They gave me courage when I wanted to give up. They reminded me that I was more than just someone's wife. I was a person. With value. With strength. My voice cracked. We started this foundation because we know what it's like to be powerless. To be afraid. To think there's no way to fight back against people who have all the power, all the money, all the connections. I looked around the room. But there is a way. We can fight back. We can stand together. We can demand justice. And we can win. The room erupted in applause. After the gala, we went out for late-night coffee. Just the 5 of us. Sitting in a diner booth, exhausted but happy. You were amazing tonight, Sophie said. We were amazing, I corrected. All of us. I never thought we'd get here, James admitted. When we first started meeting at Robert's apartment, I thought we were crazy. Taking on Alexander Sterling. It seemed impossible. Nothing's impossible when you have good people on your side, Robert said. Patricia squeezed my hand. You've come so far, Naomi. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Any of you. We sat there, drinking bad coffee and eating mediocre pie, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. 2 years after Alexander's conviction, I got a letter from him. It came to the foundation, forwarded by his prison. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Dear Naomi, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I understand why. But I needed to write this. Needed to try to explain. I've had a lot of time to think in here. A lot of time to look at what I did. What I became. You were right about everything. I was a monster. I destroyed people because I could. Because it made me feel powerful. Because I'd built an empire and I thought that gave me the right to do whatever I wanted. I destroyed you too. Not physically, but in every other way. I tried to make you small, dependent, afraid. Because somewhere deep down, I knew you were stronger than me. And that terrified me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. For all of it. For the lies. The control. The threats. For planning to hurt you. For every moment I made you feel like you didn't matter. You did matter. You do matter. And I hope you found happiness. Real happiness. The kind I could never give you. Alexander. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a drawer and went back to work. Maybe one day I'd respond. Maybe not. But either way, I didn't need his apology to move forward. I'd already moved forward without him. 3 years after leaving Alexander, I attended a conference on corporate ethics. Boring title. Important work. The conference was for business leaders who wanted to create better workplace cultures. I was one of the keynote speakers, telling my story, talking about the foundation, encouraging business leaders to listen to their employees, to create safe channels for reporting abuse, to understand that their power came with responsibility. After my speech, a man approached me. He was in his 40s with kind eyes and a warm smile. He wore a green shirt and tan jacket. Professional but not flashy. Miss Sterling? I'm Daniel Morrison. I run Morrison Technologies. I just wanted to say your speech was powerful. What you've built with the foundation is incredible. Thank you, I said. I mean it. Too many companies talk about ethics but don't actually practice it. You're doing the real work. We talked for 20 minutes. About business ethics. About creating positive workplaces. About the responsibility of leaders. He was interesting. Thoughtful. He actually listened when I talked instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. Before he left, he handed me his card. If you ever need anything for the foundation, reach out. I'd love to help however I can. Over the next few months, Daniel did help. He made a generous donation to the foundation. He connected us with other ethical business leaders. He invited me to speak at his company's quarterly meeting about creating safe workplace cultures. We became friends. Email exchanges about work. Coffee meetings to discuss foundation projects. Dinners where we talked about life, books, travel, everything except business. He was divorced. 2 kids in college. He'd built his company from nothing, always treating employees fairly. Paying well. Promoting from within. Creating the kind of workplace culture Alexander had destroyed at Sterling Enterprises. I don't understand leaders who abuse their power, Daniel said one evening over dinner. You have people's livelihoods in your hands. Their families. Their futures. Why would you treat that carelessly? Because people like Alexander only care about power, I said. Not people. Well, I'm glad you got away from him. Glad you're doing this work now. I smiled. Me too. 6 months after we met, Daniel asked me to a concert. Not a work event. Not a foundation fundraiser. Just a concert. Music. I hesitated. I hadn't dated since Alexander. Hadn't even thought about it. The idea of trusting someone again, of letting someone close, terrified me. Just as friends, Daniel added quickly, seeing my hesitation. No pressure. I just thought it might be fun. Okay, I said. As friends. The concert was wonderful. Daniel was wonderful. Respectful. Attentive. He made me laugh. Made me feel comfortable. When he dropped me off at my apartment afterward, he didn't try to kiss me. Just said, I had a great time. I hope we can do this again. I'd like that, I said. We started seeing each other more. Movies. Museums. Long walks through the city. Always as friends. Never pushing for more. But slowly something was growing between us. Something genuine. Based on mutual respect. Shared values. Real connection. Not the power dynamic that had defined my marriage to Alexander. Not control disguised as love. Just 2 people who enjoyed each other's company. Who made each other better. One evening, a year after we'd met, Daniel and I were walking through Central Park. The same park where I'd sat on a bench, processing the news about Alexander's affairs, about his crimes. Can I tell you something? Daniel asked. Of course. I care about you. A lot. More than just as a friend. He stopped walking, turned to face me. But I don't want to rush you. I don't want to push. I just wanted you to know how I feel. My heart was pounding. Part of me wanted to run. Old fears. Old trauma. The belief that relationships meant losing myself. But another part of me, the part that had fought Alexander, that had built the foundation, that had rebuilt her life, that part was brave. I care about you too, I said. And I'm scared. But I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions. He smiled. Took my hand gently. We'll go slow. As slow as you need. Okay, I said. Slow. And for the first time since I could remember, I felt hope about the future. Not just professional hope. Personal hope. The possibility of happiness. Of love. Real love. Built on equality and respect. I was finally free. 5 years after I left Alexander, the foundation was thriving beyond my wildest dreams. We'd helped over 300 people. We had offices in 5 cities. A staff of 20. Partnerships with legal aid organizations across the country. Robert had retired from the foundation to spend time with his grandchildren, but he still volunteered once a week. Sophie had become our chief financial officer, making sure every dollar was spent wisely. James ran our legal department, taking on cases pro bono or for minimal fees. Patricia was still our heart, keeping everything running smoothly. We'd helped change laws. Our advocacy work had led to stronger whistleblower protections in 3 states. Better harassment reporting systems. Stricter penalties for executives who destroyed evidence or retaliated against employees who spoke up. Alexander was still in prison. He'd be there for another 15 years at least. I didn't think about him often anymore. He'd become a footnote in my life instead of the main story. I'd been seeing Daniel for 4 years now. Slow like we'd promised, but steady. He'd met my friends. I'd met his kids. They were good kids. A son studying engineering. A daughter in medical school. They'd been wary of me at first, protective of their father. But over time they'd warmed up. Accepted me. Daniel never tried to control me. Never told me what to wear or where to go or how to spend my time. He had his life. I had mine. And we chose to share them. It was so different from my marriage to Alexander. So healthy. So equal. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel and I were at the foundation office. We just finished preparing for a big fundraiser the following week. Everyone else had gone home, but we'd stayed to put the final touches on the program. This is going to be great, Daniel said, looking over the list of speakers. You've got some really powerful testimonials lined up. I'm nervous, I admitted. This is our biggest event yet. 500 people. National media coverage. I don't want to mess it up. You won't. He took my hand. You never do. You're amazing at this. I smiled. You're biased. I'm observant. He paused. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? Really happy? I thought about it. 5 years ago I'd been terrified. Broken. Starting over with nothing. And now, I had meaningful work. True friends. A man who respected me. A life I'd built on my own terms. Yes, I said. I really am. Good. He squeezed my hand. Because I want you to stay happy. For a long time. Something in his tone made me look at him closely. He looked nervous. Daniel never looked nervous. What's going on? I asked. He took a breath. Pulled a small box from his pocket. My heart stopped. I know we said slow, he said. And I know you might not be ready. But I love you, Naomi. I love your strength. Your courage. Your compassion. I love who you are. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. If you'll have me. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Not flashy. Not expensive. Just beautiful. A small sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. I'm not trying to own you, he continued quickly. I'm not asking you to change your life or give up your work or be anything other than who you are. I just want to be your partner. Your equal. For whatever comes next. Tears were streaming down my face. Daniel? You don't have to answer now. Take all the time you need. I just wanted you to know. Yes, I said. He blinked. Yes. Yes. I'll marry you. His smile was brighter than the sun. He slipped the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly. Are you sure? He asked. You're not feeling pressured? I'm sure. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing something for me. Because I want it. Because I love you. Because I trust you. He kissed me. Gentle. Sweet. Full of promise. We got married 6 months later. Not at the Riverside Hotel. At a small garden in Brooklyn. With 200 guests. Our closest friends. Daniel's kids. My foundation family. I wore a blue dress. Simple. Elegant. My choice. Robert walked me down the aisle. Patricia cried happy tears. Sophie and James stood up with me. The ceremony was short. Personal. We wrote our own vows. Daniel promised to respect my independence. To support my work. To be my partner in everything. I promised to trust him. to let him in, to build a life together based on honesty and equality. When the officiant pronounced us married, everyone cheered. It felt different from my first wedding. Lighter. Happier. Real. At the reception I gave a short speech. 5 years ago I thought my life was over. I'd left everything I knew. I was starting from nothing. I was terrified. I looked around the room. At Robert, who'd saved my life with a warning. At Sophie, who'd helped me understand the financial crimes. At James, who'd built the legal case. At Patricia, who'd shown me kindness when I needed it most. At Carla, who'd come with little Emma, now a beautiful 5-year-old. But I wasn't starting from nothing. I was starting with all of you. With people who believed in justice. Who believed I deserved better. Who taught me that I was stronger than I thought. I turned to Daniel. And now I get to start a new chapter. With someone who sees me as an equal. Who loves me for who I am, not who he wants me to be. Daniel smiled. Took my hand. To new beginnings, I said, raising my glass. To new beginnings, everyone echoed. A year later, I was invited to testify before Congress. A committee was considering new legislation to protect whistleblowers in corporate settings. They wanted to hear from someone who'd been through it. I sat at the table, microphones in front of me, cameras recording. Members of Congress on the raised platform above me. Ms. Morrison, the committee chair said. I'd taken Daniel's name. Another choice. Mine to make. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us about your experience reporting corporate fraud? I took a breath. 5 years ago, I discovered my husband had been committing multiple federal crimes. Tax evasion, securities fraud, bribery. He'd also been systematically destroying the careers of anyone who questioned him. I told them the story. About Robert's warning. About finding the evidence. About the people who'd helped me. About going to the FBI. What made you decide to come forward? One senator asked. Because it was the right thing to do. But also because I had support. I had people who believed me. Who protected me. Not everyone has that. Most people who discover corporate wrongdoing are alone. Afraid. Vulnerable to retaliation. What would have helped you? Another senator asked. Stronger legal protections for whistleblowers. Better resources for people who report crimes. A culture that celebrates people who speak up instead of punishing them. The testimony lasted 2 hours. Afterward, several senators thanked me personally. One told me my story had changed her mind about the legislation. 6 months later, the Whistleblower Protection Enhancement Act passed. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Real progress. I framed a copy of the law and hung it in the foundation office. A reminder of what we'd accomplished. Of how far we'd come. 7 years after leaving Alexander, I got word that he was up for parole. He'd served his minimum sentence. His lawyers were arguing he'd been a model prisoner. That he'd changed. That he deserved a second chance. The parole board invited me to submit a statement. I spent a week writing it. To the parole board, Alexander Sterling destroyed lives systematically for over a decade. He fired employees without cause, destroyed their reputations, and ensured they couldn't find work. He committed tax evasion and securities fraud, stealing millions from taxpayers and investors. He bribed public officials. He threatened and harassed those who opposed him. He planned to have me injured to make me dependent on him again. He threatened a pregnant woman to ensure her silence. I don't believe he's changed. I believe he's learned to say the right things to get out of prison early. But words are easy. Actions matter. If the parole board releases him, I urge them to impose strict conditions. Supervised release. Prohibition from serving as a corporate officer. Regular financial audits. And mandatory restitution to his victims. Some people deserve second chances. But they have to earn them. Alexander Sterling hasn't earned his yet. Respectfully, Naomi Morrison. The parole board denied his request. He'd be eligible again in 5 years. I felt no satisfaction. No joy. Just a quiet acknowledgement that justice was still being served. 10 years after leaving Alexander, the foundation celebrated a milestone. We'd helped our 1,000th client. A young man named Marcus who'd been fired for reporting safety violations at a construction site. We'd gotten him legal representation. He'd won his case. Got his job back. The company had implemented new safety protocols. One person. One life change. One small victory in a much larger fight. We threw a party at the foundation. All the people we'd helped over the years. All the volunteers. All the supporters. I stood in the middle of that crowd and felt overwhelming gratitude. Not just for what we'd accomplished, but for the journey that had brought me here. 10 years ago, I'd been Mrs. Alexander Sterling. Trapped. controlled, afraid. Now I was Naomi Morrison. Free, strong, happy. I had meaningful work, a loving partner, real friends, a life I'd chosen for myself. Daniel found me in the crowd, slipped his arm around my waist. "You did this," he said, gesturing to the celebration around us. "We did this," I corrected. "All of us." He kissed my temple. "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us." That night, after everyone had gone home, I stood alone in the foundation office, looking at the photos on the wall. Robert, Sophie, James, Patricia, Carla and Emma, Daniel, all the people we'd helped. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. "Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for showing all of us that we could fight back." I smiled. Typed back, "Thank you for standing with me. For believing we could win." I turned off the lights and locked the door. Tomorrow we'd start again. More people to help. More battles to fight. More lives to change. But tonight I was going home to my husband. To the life I'd built. To the happiness I'd earned. As I walked out into the bright evening, I thought about the girl I'd been. 24 years old. Marrying a powerful man. Thinking that was what success looked like. I wished I could go back and tell her the truth. That success isn't about money or status or who you're married to. Success is about being true to yourself. About standing up for what's right. About building something meaningful with people you love. But I couldn't go back. I could only move forward. And that was exactly what I planned to do. For the rest of my life I would move forward. Helping people. Fighting injustice. Living freely. I would never again be anyone's possession. Never again be controlled by fear. I was Naomi Morrison. Survivor. Advocate. Fighter. And I was finally, completely, truly free.